Hey guys, in today's video I have 4 different tops so I can test out what happens to 3 different brands of yarn after I machine wash and dry them. The first top is made using the Big Twist Value yarn in the color Dark Denim. I do have a video on this top, and this top is made using a single stitch all the way through into the back loops only. Since this was made using a tighter stitch, I do think it will be fine in the wash. Also, if you did watch that video, you know that I'm not really a fan of this yarn. I felt like it was a little bit too thin, and also I think it may have been because my skin is a little bit too sensitive that I felt like it was kind of scratchy. This next top is also made using the Big Twist Value yarn, but this one is in the color taupe. So this one actually feels much different than the dark denim one. This one feels way better. It's a little bit more thicker and it's actually more similar to the Caron's 1 pound yarn, but a tad bit softer. For this top, I do have a couple different stitches. I have a double crochet. I did a double crochet where I skipped a couple stitches and the bobble stitch, but because they are still pretty tight, I think that this one will also do fine in the wash. I also wanted to mention that I am testing out 2 different colors of the Big Twist yarn. Since I did find such a big difference when I used dark denim versus this taupe one, I just wanted to see if I'll find any difference when I machine wash and dry them. This next top is made using the Caron's 1 pound yarn. I think this one is in the color royal blue. So I already know this is going to do fine in the washer and dryer because I always use this brand of yarn, but I still wanted to include it into this video. This top is similar to the first one that I showed you, so I did use a single crochet and I went into the back loops only. The only difference with this top is that I have 4 straps on the top instead of 2. My last top is made using the Bernat Velvet Stripes yarn, so I already know this one's going to be ruined in the wash because it specifically says you need to hand wash it, but I actually really hate this top, so I don't really care what happens to it, so I thought it would be fun to see what happens after it's going to be machine wash and dried. For this top, I did use a double crochet the entire way through, and it already looks like it's coming undone, which I believe is called worming. So once this is in the wash, I have a feeling this is going to come even more undone, but besides that, this yarn is actually really soft, so I do like the feeling of it. I think next time it would be better for a blanket and a tighter stitch. Before we get into the washing and drying, I do want to get into the directions labeled onto each brand of yarn. So for the Big Twist, it does say that you can machine wash it, but you cannot tumble dry it. Now today we are drying it in the machine because it's more practical for me, and of course we're testing this out. So I prefer to wash all of my yarn clothing items in the washer and dryer with my other clothing items because I just prefer it that way. So I only want to buy yarn that works in the machine washer and dryer. Also, if you're wondering why I bought that yarn when it says you can't tumble dry it, well, it's because I bought like 20 of them before actually reading that. Next, we have the Caron's 1 pound yarn in the color royal blue, and this says that you can machine wash and dry it. The last yarn is the Bernat Velvet Stripes yarn. It specifically says you need to hand wash them, but we're not going to follow those directions today. Okay, so we finally made it to the part where I'm going to wash all of my crochet tops. As I mentioned before, I will be washing all of these tops with my other clothing items. For my wash cycle, I did put this on warm. I really wanted to put it on hot because that's what I always use, but I had to control myself because the Burnett Velvet Stripes is in this wash. Also, I am going to be using Tide and of course some Downy. After the wash cycle is finished, this is what each of the crochet tops look like. I will go into each one of them individually. The Caron's 1 pound yarn top looks fine. We already knew that because you can machine wash and dry them. The Bernat Velvet Stripes top did come a little bit undone, but honestly I thought it was going to be much worse than it actually came out to be. And our last tops, which is from the Big Twist Value yarn, which is actually the main reason for this video. They both turned out fine in the wash, but of course it does say you can machine wash this yarn. I'm finally on to drying, and I did put all of my clothing items into one dryer, so this is by themselves, and I did put this on low temperature. I was going to film the results right after I took it out of the dryer, but it got really awkward because more people started watching me and I got a little bit nervous, so I did film the rest of this at home, but I like the lighting here better anyways. So let me first talk about the Bernat Velvet Stripes yarn. As you can see, the stitches, they actually look pretty fine. This is kind of how it looked before I put it in the wash, but this had to be in the dryer for over 30 minutes on low, and it's still a little bit damp, so I did have to hang dry it at home. But you're going to see in clips closer to this that some of the stitches did come undone. So I'm not sure if you can tell, well I can see it there, that because it was in the dryer for over 30 minutes, it started to I think it kind of melted. So before, when it was only, I think about 15 minutes, it was totally fine. It looked the same as when I put it before I put it in the dryer. But the longer I put it in, you can see it's starting to melt like on the sides there on the right. If I ever wash and dry this yarn again, I would definitely start off with a tighter stitch. And if I put it in the dryer, I would put it on low for 10 to 15 minutes and then hang dry it the rest of the time. And then I think it would totally be fine. But honestly, I don't see myself ever using the Bernat velvet stripes again, because I just bought it since it was on sale and I only bought 3 skeins. So after I'm done with that, I don't see myself ever purchasing again, but it was nice to do this machine wash and dry test. Next up, we have the Big Twist Value yarn in the color Dark Denim. So this one turned out totally fine after being washed, and it was fine after being dried as well. Now in the dryer, I did put it on low for 12 minutes. I felt like if I went any higher than 12 minutes, it might have messed up, but I didn't want to find out because I really liked how it looked, and also it felt really soft afterwards. It felt much better than when I was crocheting with it. So here you can see the before and after. The before looks a little bit different because of the lighting, but I didn't expect any stitches to come undone since I did use a sickle stitch. Last thing I wanted to mention is that when I did take it out of the dryer after 12 minutes, it did feel slightly damp, but nothing too bad because once I took it home, it was totally fine. But again, I did not want to go over 12 minutes. Once again, we do have the Big Twist Value yarn, but this one is in the color Taupe. Similar to the Big Twist yarn in the color Dark Denim, this one turned out totally fine. The only difference between the two is that the Dark Denim felt worse before, but felt better after. This one felt better before and after. This top was made using a half double crochet and a couple other stitches. I didn't expect anything to come undone, but of course I want to show you the close-ups. Also, this was in the dryer for 12 minutes on low. This top is bigger than the Dark Denim one, but once I took it out of the dryer, it was only a slight bit damp, and once I brought it home, again, it was fully dry. So I'm really excited that both of these turned out totally fine after being washed and dried. The most important thing is that I was able to dry this yarn without having any issues. Last but not least, we have the Caron's 1-pound yarn in the color Royal Blue. So we already knew this one was going to turn out fine, but of course I still had to put it in there. It's my favorite yarn, and this basically concludes the end of my machine wash and dry test for the Bernat Velvet Stripes yarn, the Big Twist yarn, and our Caron's 1-pound yarn. So I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you in my next one.